go live to the propaganda.
Sir, what exactly are you protesting here today?
I don't even know why we're yelling, but I think chaos is good. What's wrong?
I watched the news. It said people are being taken from their homes.
Do you know anyone personally affected?
No, but my friend's uncle's distant cousin's friend. We're here to get impressionable youth to come cause chaos.
Why are you out here today? They're taking people from their homes. Where'd you see that? The news! Go watch the news! We are the resistance! The news said so! Grab a rock!
Good thing there's pallets of bricks and a conveniently placed pile just dropped off for protesters.
Here's the thing about people being illegal. Illegal should be legal. We don't need laws. What's good, foo? You want to catch a fade? I'll mess you up right now.
How fun. Reminds me of the Floyd Fest.
Perfect distraction while the so-called Semites cause unrest in the Middle East.
Right. More propaganda.
Good one, John. Shut it down or I'll shut it down. In other news, we were promised this land thousands of years ago. Bergstein, take it away.
Thanks, Steinowitz. Remember, people, they are the bad guys. Trust me.
These people are an absolute cancer.
Truly going to be the end of the human species.
That's anti-Semitic, Brittany. You better watch your tone.
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot they fund the news.
Exactly. Back to you, Dennis.
You guys make a good point, but my producers tell me to distract people with chaos so they don't notice who's actually starting World War III.
Why are you out here today?
Because if you come here illegally, you deserve to be here. Like, illegal activities shouldn't even be illegal, dog.
Well, this is a perfect way for the government to unleash martial law. Get ready for FEMA camps, folks. Breaking news, it turns out that the people carpet bombing the innocent are actually the good guys. Just kidding, that would be retarded. Let's go live to Steinberg.
So you're saying they have weapons of mass destruction again?
Exactly. It's the same excuse we've used since the towers fell. Not much has changed. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get PTSD from hurting the innocent, then we die for the chosen people. Yeah. Let's go, we shouldn't be here.
This non-chosen sand person lost his home and family just hours ago, but Israeli military officials say this is God's plan and questioning it is antiseptic.
I miss 2001, back when we all blamed the same people. Today, everybody notices. This is why we do false flags. We go live to the dancing Israelis.
These people really know how to dance, but the real dancers are on the roof.
We're following these guys up to the top floor, no clue what's going on, but they're moving fast. Yo, check this out. We are God's chosen people.
Breaking news out of Times Square. Officials say they found a Muslim passport in the debris.
Oh, it was the Jews. Sir, are you okay? I'm sending my son off to Iran tonight.
You saw it from your apartment?
Yeah, right over there. They were just dancing. It didn't look right.
Wow. We better go fund that.
Right? It feels good to personally fund the most grotesque acts of violence. Back to you, Dennis.
It was widely reported that men had been celebrating the attack after recording the first plane strike. They were not Al-Qaeda, but they were detained.
I grabbed my binoculars and I could see the towers from my window. And this is where I'm looking. And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van park. And I see 3 guys on top of the van. And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked.
The men who were detained due to the report they were taping the first plane crash and then celebrating and joking about it actually went on television and admitted it was their job to record the attack.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad.
Mossad is not the intelligence agency of Israel. It's the intelligence agency of the Rothschilds, and that's why it turns up all over the world in false flag set up terrorist events and assassinations and all that stuff, because it's not carrying out the policy of Israel, it's carrying out the policy of the Rothschilds that control Israel. Now let's look at 9/11. The World Trade Center lease was purchased just a few weeks before 9/11 by Larry Silverstein, Rothschild Zionist, and Frank Lowy, Rothschild Zionist, and the deal was done with this guy called Eisenberg, Louis Eisenberg, Rothschild Zionist, the head of the New York Port Authority. The head of the CIA, who investigated what happened on 9/11, George Tenet, Rothschild Zionist. The Patriot Act, which was brought out, the Orwellian Take Your Freedoms Away Patriot Act in America, was co-authored, justified by 9/11, though it was written before because they knew it was coming, by Michael Chertoff, whose mother was a Mossad agent and who became the second head later of Homeland Security, an organization Orwellian that was justified by 9/11. At the time of 9/11, in the run-up to it, and then the war on terror and all that stuff, the Pentagon was dominated by Paul Wolfowitz, Rothschild Zionist, Dov Zakheim, the comptroller, who managed to lose trillions of dollars and still got away with it. And by the way, when one announcement was made of how much he'd lost or had gone missing in the Pentagon, they announced it on September the 10th, 2001. I wonder if they realized that because of that, it would never see the light of day. Dov Zakheim, Rothschild Zionist, and people like Douglas Feith or Feith, Rothschild Zionist in the Pentagon. Now, as I've said earlier, the Bush administration was dominated and controlled by what became known as the neocons, the neoconservatives, which were a Rothschild Zionist organization, led by people like Richard Pearl, Rothschild Zionist, William Crystal, Rothschild Zionist, John Bolton, Rothschild Zionist, in belief in nothing, if nothing else. And then the 9/11 Commission report, which was the official report investigating 9/11. They wanted Kissinger to head it first until the public didn't take that seriously and he had to step down. But that report, which agreed that the official story of 9/11 was true, was written and overseen by Philip Zelikow, Rothschild Zionist. The judge, Alvin Hellerstein, who is hearing and overseeing the cases of the 9/11 families, who are taking out lawsuits to try to find the truth of 9/11, etc., Rothschild Zionists making sure that truth never comes out.
The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
How could they have known about the attack? And who sent them to document it? The evidence points to a large intelligence network inside the United States that had teams on the ground, such as the ones recording the attack, and electronic surveillance teams gathering information. It is now apparent that this intelligence ring was inside the U.S., had prior knowledge of 9/11, and had a classified role in 9/11, which officials refused to discuss. It was also able to penetrate U.S. intelligence agencies and secret offices, yet all were released.
By the might and glory of Rome!
The structure commonly revered today is, in truth, a surviving wall of the Roman military compound known as Fort Antonia, not the Holy Temple. The actual temple stood to the south, built over the Gihon Spring, a requirement for temple purification rituals, which the Roman compound did not meet. The protruding rock beneath the dome of the rock, often mistaken for the foundation stone of the temple, was in fact the central part of Fort Antonia. In other words, the Jews today are not praying at the remains of God's temple. They are praying at the wall of a Roman fortress. But the deception goes deeper. The rituals performed at the Wailing Wall are rooted not in biblical faith, but in the 13th century occult system of the Kabbalah, as elaborated in the Zohar and further mystified by the Hasidic movement. The supposed divine presence they seek at the wall is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is the Shekhinah, a feminine emanation in Jewish mysticism. She is described in erotic, intimate terms, often as a divine consort, with whom spiritual union is sought through the act of prayer, a practice called kavana, where physical movement, like the back and forth thrusting you see, mirrors an esoteric sexual ritual intended to unite the Shekhinah with the Ein Sof, the infinite masculine force of their God concept. This is not worship. It's a metaphysical sex act disguised as devotion. It is an inversion of divine truth, rooted in mysticism that Scripture calls an abomination. And this is where it collides with our politics. Nearly every major political figure, presidents, prime ministers, global influencers, must perform their rite of passage at the Wailing Wall, hands pressed against stone, heads bowed in reverence. They are not just pandering to voters or honoring tradition. They are knowingly or unknowingly participating in an occult ritual, submitting themselves at the very seat of the synagogue of Satan. Scripture is unambiguous. In Acts 17:24, it says, God does not dwell in temples made with hands. Much less would he dwell in a Roman fortress surrounded by rituals that glorify a false god and mystical union. It is spiritual prostitution. Our leaders are not just shaking hands with global powers. They are shaking hands with the devil.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
That hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing.
Okay, this is the original mold of the second Trump, Cyrus Trump temple coin. And as you can see over here, let's see what we have. Okay, first of all, we have over here in Hebrew, Lemalot Shivim Shana, to fulfill 70 years. The original verse, to fulfill 70 years, is when the Jews went out to exile, to the Babylonian exile. They were there for 70 years. And after 70 years, King Cyrus said, God, the Lord of the world, gave me permission to let you, the Jews, come back to the land of Israel. And look what he said. And he charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem. That happened about 2,500 years ago. And now, 70 years for the state of Israel, something happened again. One of the biggest leaders of the world, again, President Donald Trump, and here we see the seal of America, he again recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, of the state of Israel, the people of Israel, and he also built a house in Jerusalem. But we don't want only the embassy. We hope, just as King Cyrus pushed us, the Jewish people, to rebuild the temple, we hope all the 70 nations and President Donald Trump, after he recognized Jerusalem as the spiritual, holy capital of the land of Israel, of the state of Israel, he will help us, the Jewish people, rebuild the third temple. And that's why we have the seal of America, the original Persian Empire. And where are you from? Jamaica. Jamaica. And you're from the USA. And you're from
Argentina.
Argentina. And where are you
Guatemala.
from? Guatemala. Look at this. Look at this. And we have somebody from India. It's unbelievable. Here, in the center of Jerusalem, I'm surrounded people from other nations, and we're all talking about one thing, of the importance of Jerusalem, and the importance of peace, and the importance of the Geulah of redemption. So we're part of a prophetic process. That's what it's all about. And this president, he understood when nobody else understood. He understood we're not talking politics. We're not talking politics. We're talking Torah. We're talking prophets. That's what it's all about. And once we understand it, and I think he understood it, maybe he can't say it, but he knows. And he's pushing us. He's pushing us. And the whole world is there.
Can I ask,
where are you from?
England.
England, okay. So you have England also.
Can I ask, you said earlier that some of the temple is ready to be built in a prefab state. Is that true? Do you have part of the temple already built?
And it's exactly what we said before. It's not enough to pray for the temple. And if you pray for something, you have to believe. And to show that you believe something, you have to do. So that's why we have a lot of vessels made. We have a big altar that was made. We have programs, and yes, also some of the pieces of the temple, like this blocks itself, can be just transferred exactly like the model we see over here, 15 times bigger than this, and the temple can be built.
Do you think that this temple could somehow unite Islam, Muslim religion with Christianity and Judaism? Do you think that's...
So if we're talking about the Persian Empire, we know now that in Iran, which is where Persia is now, there's some different empire, but we're talking about the original Persian Empire. And yes, even in Iran, we have Iranians who are not Jewish, who want this coin because they understand that, yes, this is the place that will unite the whole world. And yes, the Jewish people have the power to unite the whole world. It's not us, not just Jewish people, but as long as we are talking the words of Hashem, that's what Hashem is. Hashem Echad, Shmo Echad. Hashem is the one which can unite everybody.
Messiah will be the judge.
You believe the Mashiach ben David is coming to this
Mashiach ben
temple?
David is very soon, and he is a Jew, and he is not Jesus. And if the Christians want to hold it, they can hold it.
And Mashiach ben David would potentially be the Messiah that would rule over this unity, this one world unity.
The first king we had that was a real king was King David, and we know that the king that will be eventually leading the world will also be from Yehuda, like you said, Mashiach ben David, or eventually the leader of the world will be a king, not a political king, but a spiritual king that will help all of us understand together what we are supposed to be doing in this world.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus is described as the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the Son of David. Do you think that maybe Jesus, Yeshua, could be the true Messiah, and we might have maybe a counterfeit that could show up?
People will understand. It's like, I don't know, a small kid when you offer him chocolate, or an adult. If you offer him money, nobody's going to say no to money, which is something very not spiritual. When we have the right understanding of what's important in the world, it'll be obvious to all of us that that's what we want. Everybody will be running after spirituality. So when that time comes, everybody will want it.
Okay, so we believe that the Antichrist will actually be the head of this deception before the real Mashiach comes. That's where we differ on our thinking at the moment.
After a man has far more money than he possibly can spend for pleasures, what is left to excite him? For those with a ruling class mentality, the answer is power. raw power over other human beings. Money can buy such power only to a point. Beyond that, politics is the sport, and world politics is the ultimate game. These men are striving to create a world superstate, with the expectation that from behind the scenes, they will be the ones who will rule. If those who seek world dominion can stimulate leftist mobs into violent confrontation with local law enforcement, and also provide exhaustive news coverage so that the entire nation can see and tremble, then the peaceful and freedom-loving majority can be programmed to accept a vast expansion of government powers and even a national police force, offered supposedly to end the violence. If those who seek world dominion can raise the specter of an enemy armed to the teeth with superior atomic weapons on the verge of launching a nuclear holocaust, and also offer world government as the prevention, then millions of Americans can be programmed to accept the loss of national sovereignty as our last best hope for peace. This is the meaning of pressure from above and below. To put over police state measures at home, they need chaos, crime, and anarchy in the streets. It's a sobering fact that the hidden power structure of international finance has exerted tremendous influence over public opinion in this country through its virtual control of higher education and major segments of mass communications. The human mind is like a computer. No matter how efficient it may be, its reliability is only as great as the information fed into it. If it is possible to control the input of the human mind, then no matter how intelligent a person may be, it's entirely possible to program what he will think. And yes, it's even possible to program people to laugh at the mere mention of the word conspiracy.
As I came to accept the idea of a ruling elite planning for total global domination, I began to hear these same people actually talking more boldly and publicly about it. Only they call it the New World Order.
A hierarchy has always existed in nature. There's a leader of each pack, elders to every tribe, and conquerors in every battle. It may be for this reason that mankind has always had rulers overseeing the functions and development of civilization. It may be that this is what nature intended for society, to grow at a healthy, controlled pace without collapsing. Or it may be that man is not yet ready to govern himself. Throughout the ages, tyrants have risen and fallen. Governments have been established and overthrown, like monuments erected and torn down over centuries past. The intentions of these leaders have ranged from nefarious to heroic. Yet, even as humanity has reached the height of its intellect and abundance, the commitment to a system of guided leadership remains central to the entire world system. Many in the modern world are pushing for a more centralized authority, while others fear it will bring the downfall of modern man. Is it still survival of the fittest? Or do the best legislative solutions truly win out in the modern world? No matter how you look at it, there's no ignoring the monumental conspiracies that happen at the top of it all, like they always have. Has our world always needed guidance from learned elders and divinely selected kings? Or has the struggle for power always been won by those willing and able to dominate their opponents? At the beginning of it all, primitive man was up against the elements and environmental dangers of his world. For this reason, those with life experience usually rose to places of leadership within the tribe. These elders did everything from teaching survival skills to keeping an oral history of the stories and traditions of their people. These figures were often the matriarchs of the group who made the major decisions and shouldered the responsibility for the tribe's well-being. Not only did they make political decisions, but they shaped religious ideologies and practices as well. shamanic rites and rituals became a universal way for young tribe members to take part in the collective identity and enter adulthood. It could be that this is how early leaders imposed subtle control over the collective hierarchy. Though many anthropologists believe that this phenomenon was developed to create a strong generational bond between initiates, which would ensure their cooperation and the future well-being of the tribe.
So do I think he was killed? 100%. Yes, I do. Because he made his whole living blackmailing people. Yeah.
What was that?
There were a lot of men in those planes, a lot of men who visited that island, a lot of powerful men who came into that apartment.
If their lies and crimes continue to go unchecked, the new planetary control grid they're putting into place, with 5G networks, nanotechnology, robotics, and the Internet of Things, will soon corral us into a technocratic tyranny administered by unaccountable AI systems. The world of appearances is always fooling us.
London doesn't look like the most corrupt place on earth, but it's the global capital of money laundering for organized crime. The clownish, kid-friendly host of BBC shows like Top of the Pops and Jim'll Fix It, Jimmy Savile, was a close friend of Prince Charles and knighted by the Queen. But in secret he raped hundreds of children and had a ghoulish side career as a necrophiliac. Savile stole the glass eyes from corpses that he had molested and had them set in silver so he could wear the eyes as rings on his fingers. Another multi-millionaire rapist of children, Jeffrey Epstein, had a hallway festooned with glass eyes in what has been described as one of the largest private homes in Manhattan.
A 21,000 square foot mansion on the Upper East Side that had been given to Epstein
for free by his billionaire pal, Les Wexner. In a world where everyone is under surveillance and everything they do can be known, you can't credibly suggest that the FBI, NSA, CIA, MI5, GCHQ, MI6 and the British royal family didn't know exactly what was going on there. They were, at the very least, complicit and more likely, enablers. It's often hard to determine if the rich and powerful are evil or just insatiably greedy and short-sighted. Either way, the pixels are starting to show on this simulation. Costly, endless wars that serve no purpose other than to loot natural resources, strip the assets from a bomb-addled populace, and enrich transnational corporations, state-sponsored sex trafficking, false flag mass shootings, and intelligence agency-assisted drug smuggling.
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time. Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. I have been trying to get this out for 18 years, and I have the evidence. My question for you is very specific, sir. If, in the course of the IG's investigations and Fred Hitz's work, you come across evidence of severely criminal activity,
Let him speak into
and
the
it's
mic.
classified, will you use that classification to hide the criminal activity, or will you tell the American people the truth?
Wait a minute. From your, I'm sorry, sir. I will allow the director to speak first, and then Congressman Julian Dixon.
If you have information about CIA illegal activity in drugs, you should immediately bring that information to wherever you want, but let me suggest 3 places. The Los Angeles Police Department.
For the record, my name is Mike Ruppert, R-U-P-P-E-R-T. I did bring this information out 18 years ago, and I got shot at and forced out of LAPD because of it. I've been on the record for 18 years nonstop, and I'll be happy to give you, Congressman, anything that I have.
Exponentially accelerating species extinction caused by the unimpeded destruction of the ecosystem, and full spectrum narrative control in an AI-enhanced establishment media that would have us laughing at poisons while they silence all whistleblowers and persecute truth-tellers.
Our self-styled overlords aren't experiencing a momentary lapse in reason here, or a temporary deficit in empathy. Their moral bankruptcy is complete. Their ethics-free barbarity is on infinite loop.
Some of us covered it for years. Did you? That's Reality Check. Let's talk about it on social media while we still can. So let me introduce Whitney Webb, an independent journalist. She writes for Mint Press News and also has written for truthandmedia.com and has been following the Epstein case for several years now. And Whitney, as we take a look at this case, the name that jumps out is Leslie Wexner, and yet media wants to ignore him, including Chris Cuomo over at CNN, who said this just the other day.
When we're talking about Epstein, you got to stick to what is common sense on these things, all right? Don't get buried in legalese. Don't follow the finger pointing, and please don't get caught up in the intrigue of who was better friends with this guy. Who cares?
The day before his death, they had these new documents that were finally released by the court, and we saw some new names in there that we hadn't necessarily heard before, like New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, the former governor of New Mexico and once UN ambassador. And since that time, it seems like a lot of those names, there's been no talk about them virtually at all in the mainstream, as well as digging into any of those documents. It's as if those documents were released and then his death conveniently seemed to kind of end all the talk about those other contacts, did it not?
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. So those documents that were released were part of a civil case that was between one of Epstein's victims and Ghislaine Maxwell, and it was a partial release that was actually being sought mainly by Alan Dershowitz, who's accused of raping these girls, and he allegedly, according to the victims anyway, was trying to get this partial release in order to reveal the identity of more of the victims in order to target and intimidate them, something he was known to do in the past and actually hired former FBI Director Louis Freeh to do for him. But what happens with the death of Jeffrey Epstein coming a day after this, I think, is significant because it means that the criminal case that was against him goes away. And what that means is that all of the evidence obtained, any sort of electronic documentation, photographic evidence, things of that nature, will not be made public now unless another co-conspirator is charged in the case. And I think that's very significant because we know that his New York home was raided. Even though other residences of his have not been raided, we can assume that significant amounts of evidence potentially implicating powerful people was found in the course of this investigation. And now that that criminal case has died with Epstein, that will not be made public. And the fact that they're telling us now to look away from other co-conspirators that could be charged and keep that case going, I think is again just really spelling out what they want us to avoid looking at, and how this is about keeping more damaging information that could implicate more powerful people from coming out into the public.
It almost feels as if by dismissing the case against him, it certainly limits the process going forward for prosecutors. Do I have that right, or is that incorrect?
To an extent, but given the fact that people of what we know about the activities of Ghislaine Maxwell and Leslie Wexner, for example, and the operation Epstein was running, and based on just what the victims themselves have said.
It ended with sexual abuse and intercourse, and then a pat on the back. You've done a really good job. Thank you very much, and here's $200. Before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and to academics and to people that royalty and people that you would never think, how did you get into that position of power in the first place if you're this disgusting, evil, decrepit person on the inside?
Hi, this is Johnny Carson asking, you have a daughter who's a really good-looking chick. Well, you may be able to change her life and improve your financial status, because Prince Andrew is looking for a new girlfriend. Just drop a nude photo of your little nymphette in a self-addressed stamped envelope and mail it to Royal Affair, Buckingham Palace, London.
I think there's definitely enough evidence to bring charges against Ghislaine Maxwell at the very least. And there's lots of indications as well that Leslie Wexner was really financing this whole operation, and that as people have looked into this after Epstein's arrest in July, it has come out, or it has become more apparent that Epstein was not actually a billionaire, that all of his wealth seemed to have come really just directly from Leslie Wexner as his only publicly acknowledged client. Wexner is accused of raping these girls as well, as is Ghislaine Maxwell. And Wexner's ties to Epstein go back very far. Epstein had a power of attorney over lots of Wexner's affairs. Epstein and Wexner together were involved in a CIA front company together, Southern Air Transport, and were responsible for relocating that company to Columbus, Ohio, have been involved in this for a very long time. The New York residence where Epstein was abusing these girls was provided to Epstein for essentially free by Wexner, who bought the property, installed recording equipment in it that was later used for blackmail by Epstein. And he also received a plane from Wexner. So the involvement of these players is very clear, but I think this part of this goes back to the sweetheart deal that Epstein had originally received in 2007, which essentially protected his co-conspirators from being charged and sort of placed all the blame on Epstein, and then Epstein got a slap in the wrist. And what we're seeing now is that now that Epstein is dead, all of the blame for this operation is being placed on Epstein now that he is out of the picture and charges can no longer be pressed against him, which is quite convenient for the network of which he was a part.
In many ways, as you said, Wexner was kind of providing the avenues by which a lot of this abuse took place.
Absolutely. And Wexner also has not, he has claimed that he was defrauded by Epstein, but has not provided evidence to support that case. And we do know that right before Epstein went to jail the first time, he transferred $46 million to Wexner. That's the opposite of stealing. Right. And there's been no pushback from the mainstream media on that, which I think is really troubling. And, it's not really surprising either. If you look back into Wexner's history, he has associations with organized crime, and was implicated in the 1985 murder of the lawyer representing Wexner's company, The Limited, whose name was Arthur Shapiro. This came out by accident. It was a highly suppressed police report. It was obtained by accident as part of a public information inquiry by a local journalist, and it revealed that Wexner was deeply tied to organized crime, had all these sorts of associations with tax evasion and other things, and we know that Epstein was involved in that same sort of shady financial activity as well. And going forward, as I mentioned, they both got involved with Southern Air Transport. The Ohio Inspector General at the time thought that they were both working with the CIA and smuggling things, and they called Southern Air Transport's route that was established on Wexner's behalf between Hong Kong and Columbus, Ohio, the Mayor Lansky run, of course referencing Mayor Lansky, the notorious American mobster, and suggesting that this air transit route that had been established between Wexner and Epstein and Southern Air Transport was being used for smuggling, but he didn't say what it was. But one can speculate as to what that illicit cargo may have been.
Children in Arizona who are missing right now from state custody. But who is out there looking for them?
Over 1 million children vanish each year.
There are over 500,000 missing children in the United States. On Halloween, Virginia has 5 times the average of missing children than across the nation. Washington, D.C. is ground zero for pedophilia among the elite.
The FBI has found dozens of missing children in Los Angeles. It's all part of what's being called Operation Lost Angels.
83,000 each month.
They found nearly 978 children went missing in 2019.
2,700 a day.
72 missing children across Indiana, Iowa, Ohio, and Georgia in the past several weeks.
115 per hour.
In the meantime, the Arizona Department of Child Safety says tonight they can't locate 44 children who are supposed to be in their custody.
1 every 30 seconds.
Some in this operation were trafficked, some sexually and or physically abused.
This child trafficking thing is real.
I think it's everyone's responsibility in the world to not let our children grow up in an era where sex trafficking is the most profitable industry in the world. It's a $100 billion profit a year just on human trafficking, just on modern day slavery. How is that not being talked about? How is that even happening?
If you're watching this, it means they got me. My dead man switch activated automatically after I missed 2 scheduled check-ins. I had it set up months ago because I knew this day was coming. I did not die by accident. I was murdered to keep their secrets buried. My name is Virginia Louise Giuffre. I was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. I survived Little St. James, but survival came at a price. I saw too much, knew too much, and now they've silenced me. But it's too late for them. They thought killing me would bury their secrets, but this video is going to a few organizations I trust, ones that have been exposing the truth for decades. You know who you are. It's your job to continue this fight. I was 16 when they reeled me in. I worked at Mar-a-Lago, folding towels, cleaning lockers. My father kept the tennis courts immaculate. We were just working folks trying to scrape by. Trump, he was around, but he was never the threat. The real predator was Ghislaine Maxwell, prim and proper, smiling, promising to teach me massage therapy at the Pink Mansion in Palm Beach. I had no idea I was being fed into a nightmare machine. Epstein's Island was hell disguised as paradise. You've heard some names linked to him, but those are just the sacrificial pawns. The real players, the ones they've protected at all costs, are still hiding in plain sight. I'll name two now. The first, a former U.S. president, Barack Obama. Publicly, he's revered. Privately, he was one of the worst. He wasn't there for the girls. He was there for the island boys. Young boys, trafficked and groomed. I saw him more times than I can count, always without his Secret Service detail, sometimes with his Hollywood friends, George Clooney and Tom Hanks. I still have nightmares about them, arrogant and drunk on power, slinking into the cabanas with kids barely out of childhood. The second, Bill Gates, the billionaire philanthropist, loved by the media, hailed as a savior. We called him the benefactor, and we used to dread seeing him naked. But he didn't come to party. He came to experiment. Genetic experiments, human experiments. I saw him inject a young girl with something they said was a genetic enhancement. She was younger than me, strapped to a table, terrified, treated like a lab rat while they muttered about seeding the future of the species. These men think they are gods, playing with life like it was theirs to own. I'm telling you now, Epstein isn't dead. They staged his death because he was too valuable. He held blackmail on some of the most powerful people on earth. Files, videos, confessions. They couldn't risk him talking, but they also couldn't risk him gone, so they hid him, stashed him under the protection of the same elite who once paid him to supply them with flesh. And they thought killing me would stop this from coming out. They were wrong, and there is so much more to come. Hidden servers, encrypted drives, witness testimonies. It's all going to hit the light. This video is just the first detonation. The data drops are timed and automatic. They are going to people who can make a difference, and nobody can stop it now. Not even the law enforcement agencies in the US and UK, the same ones that buried the evidence I handed them, can stop this truth from getting out. If you're watching this, you are the resistance. Don't let my death be just another headline. Burn their lies to the ground. Make the world see the monsters behind the masks. And to any survivors out there, don't give up. We're in this together. They can't kill us all. Make them pay.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything.
Why is it that the topic of pedophilia is such a closed conversation? And clearly, one of the reasons is because you have pedophilia at such high levels of government, at the highest echelons of government.
People need to face this. This could be their little kid. This could be their neighbor's little kid. This could be a relative's little kid. As unpleasant as this is, Americans need to come out and not only face this, but they need to start fighting it.
Hello, Turning Point. Hello, everyone. Wow, this is incredible. It's great to be back here. I don't have the bulletproof vest on. I'm just wearing the cross today, so hopefully that protects me. Because we tend to make a lot of enemies telling the truth, don't we? You can tell a man's virtues by his enemies and his vices by his friends. What does it mean to be liberal anymore? What does it mean to be conservative anymore? I consider myself a constitutionalist. I believe in the First Amendment, I believe in the Fourth Amendment, and I believe in the public's right to know. Let me take you back to the month of April. This is April 28th in a restaurant in Washington, D.C. This is the Attorney General of the United States talking to someone. They recorded it, sent it to us, talking about tens of thousands of videos.
Do you know when the Epstein files are going to get released?
We hope soon. The FBI's been.
Okay.
So.
Any dates?
No, you know what it is? There are tens and thousands of videos.
Yeah.
And it's all with little kids. So they have to go through every one.
Now, we sent the Attorney General an email requesting comment. This is on May the 1st, a couple days after the 28th. We quoted what she had said, tens of thousands of videos of little kids, not something that's been reported publicly. After we sent the email, suddenly we saw this at the White House.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. They still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn.
It seemed to mirror quite identically what we had captured just 9 days prior.
Tens and thousands of videos.
Yeah.
And it's all with little kids. There are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn.
Something didn't seem to add up. It raised questions. The questions for me and my team was, and this is not an easy story for us to publish, is why share that with someone at a restaurant but not share it with the American people first? We also saw this on Joe Rogan.
No, we're giving you everything we have.
And is there video from the island?
Not of what you want.
But is there footage?
If there was footage of anyone doing anything else, we would have opened a case.
There are tens and thousands of videos.
Yeah.
And it's all with little kids.
Something doesn't seem to be adding up. Now, the Department of Justice issued this statement, which you probably all saw this week. There's no client list. There's no evidence of any blackmail. And there's no evidence that could predicate an investigation against anybody else. There's no story. There's no evidence. Now listen, as a reporter, as a journalist, I can always tell you, there's always a story. So, I'm announcing, and I have announced previously, but I'm going to release some new information here on stage with you today. It's time to take matters into our own hands. If we can't get transparency, then we need to be the change that we seek. We need to have people come to us, sources on the inside, brave people, often speaking out of turn, and we released images. These were images given to us by people in the government, people who don't trust the government. First, we got some images inside the Epstein temple, never before seen. Very strange stuff, including something on the ceiling. We were trying to decipher what that was. Then we got images inside his library, including on his blackboard. I presume the FBI has all this. Strange things, power, deception, various words. A lot of people online trying to decipher or crack the code. We even got images inside his bedroom. Next to his bed table, there was a phone. On the phone, there was a series of names. Karina, Darren, Rich, Mike. I wonder if any of these people know what happened with all this child stuff that happened. We even were able to find out the names of these people by doing some research. His last girlfriend, his advisor, his lawyer. You're trying to tell me that none of these people had any knowledge about any illegal activity? But I think it's time for us to just hear directly from FBI agents. What do you guys think? You know, I have an idea. What if we launched something called FBI Leaks? How about that? How about we release audio and video. Listen, whether they come to me on the record or off the record, they tend to be more honest off the record. So perhaps we need to publish what they're saying off the record. We have to do that. And in our first video, released right now online, we're going to release the Deputy National Intelligence Officer of the FBI, whose name is Rami Hassan, and he's talking about the Epstein case, and he says, I'm with the FBI, quote, it's a shit show. And this is, I'm just going to play a little clip. You can find the rest of it online.
I'm with FBI. This is a shit show.
Small coincidence.
I'm with FBI.
He also talks about that you can kind of see where law enforcement kind of either turned a blind eye or missed things. This man is a director, and he's saying law enforcement turned a blind eye. The question is, what did they turn a blind eye to? And I'm calling on everyone on the inside with knowledge of the situation to come out, to tell the truth, because we, the American people, have a right to know. You have to understand how these people in Washington, D.C. work. They don't care about you. They want money and they want power. But we have to expose that. This guy was one of the guys at the Biden White House telling us all about what was happening inside the Biden White House. I was sitting right across from me. At one point, the guy actually, they never asked me a question about myself. Our undercover people, they never ask us questions. At one point, he actually says, so tell me about you. I was like, whoa, I've never been asked that question before. No one's ever asked me that before. So I turned it right back around on him and I said, you're like this famous person who's like a spy. It's like you're James Bond or something. And he was like, oh, thank you so much. He kept talking. We've also confronted this guy. He's in the Pentagon. His name is Jason Beck, Total Force Requirements and Sourcing Policy, Office of the Secretary of Defense. This is the deep state. These are the names and the faces of the people that are behind the scenes, unelected, really running the show. Jason Beck says we need to abolish the Senate. He says we need to pack the Supreme Court. He says we need universal health care.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced.
To forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The Bonesmen, as they're called, choose their initiates just like Freemasonry. In fact, the only way one can join the Skull and Bones is if one is invited by inside members. Every year, only 15 members are allowed to enter, which is very mysterious because many popular figures throughout history have been members of this secret society. 3 famous United States presidents have been Bonesmen, such as William H. Taft, George H.W. Bush, and his son George W. Bush. Many U.S. senators are also Bonesmen, such as Prescott Bush, John Kerry, John Chafee, Jonathan Bingham, David Boren, John Sherman Cooper, Chauncey Depew, William Maxwell Evarts, James L. Buckley, Robert A. Taft, Frank Bosworth Brandegee, John Hines, and John Patton Jr. were all members of the Skull and Bones. 5 U.S. governors, 3 congressmen, 5 Supreme Court justices, Pierre E. J., the first chairman of the New York Federal Reserve, and George L. Harrison, the president of the New York Federal Reserve, were all Skull and Bonesmen. The Bushes have long been pillars of the infamous Skull and Bones Society, based in a windowless mausoleum known as the Tomb, alongside the campus.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret.
Yale campus, the Skull and Bones building, is known as the Tomb, being decorated in skulls, bones, swords, knives, armor, death, blood, and darkness. It is here that they perform their bizarre and sexually ritualistic initiations. Sometimes, ear-piercing screams can be heard coming from this building. In 2001, ABC News, along with the New York Observer, filmed an imitation throat-cutting ritual being performed by the Bonesmen.
The videotape provides a grainy glimpse into what appear to be the initiation rituals of a secret society that's been around since 1832, whose members have gone on to be leaders of Wall Street and the White House, the Senate and the Supreme Court.
They're sort of trying to scare the initiates, make them, disorient them, frighten them.
New York Observer investigative reporter Ron Rosenbaum accompanied a team of Yale students who shot these pictures 9 days ago. Rosenbaum's curiosity about Skull and Bones was permanently piqued when, as a classmate of George W. Bush, he lived right next to the Tomb, the group's heavily fortified home. From their perch, Rosenbaum and his cohorts taped the Tomb's courtyard. What they captured, they say, was initiates, known as neophytes, being forced to kiss a skull, then members performing a mock killing. It may look like your average fraternity nonsense, but Rosenbaum says it's not.
Even though it may seem silly to us, it seems to mean something to them, and you can't argue with the success of Skull and Bones.
True. Famous alums include senators John Kerry and John Chafee, to name 2, cabinet secretaries such as Averell Harriman, and 3 presidents, William Taft, George Bush, and George W. Bush, who's been reluctant to talk about Skull and Bones.
Does it still exist? The thing is so secret, I'm not even sure it still exists.
Rosenbaum says the tape is a valuable artifact, an extremely rare view into the secret society that groomed the American ruling class for generations.
The Skull and Bones Society, along with the Bush family, put illegal drugs such as heroin and cocaine on the streets of the U.S. and the rest of the world. The Illuminati families in America and Britain launched an international drug trade and still maintain it today. Through their power in government agencies, they wipe out opposition, and this is exactly what you see when you watch a big drug bust on the news. Controlling the drug trade is a huge step to gaining financial power, and is also a key factor in keeping parts of the world poor, unhealthy, and in poverty.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. He's a Jesuit and a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. To obtain this level of 33rd degrees, you must at least have committed 1 murder. Donald Trump is just a puppet.
You couldn't say it. And Dr. Fauci, who I actually got along with, he's a nice guy. He's a great promoter, you know. Not a great doctor, but he's a hell of a promoter. He likes television more than any politician in this room. And they like television. But he's been wrong on almost every issue. And he was wrong on Wuhan and the lab also, very wrong. And we ended the payments. You know, they were started in 2014, and then I can tell you, Mark Meadows came in, and I talked to him, and he saw what I saw, and I said, what the hell's going on? When did that start? Started in 2014, and we ended it. Our administration ended it. But generally speaking, I went the opposite way of Dr. Fauci, what he was saying. For instance, Fauci said, do not close our borders to China or Europe, but I did it anyway. And months later, he said, I made the right decision and saved thousands and thousands of lives. He said it was the right decision, but he did not want to close that border. I said, wait a minute, there's tremendous infection over there. We can't let this happen. And we closed it, and I think we saved hundreds of thousands of lives. You remember the number was 2.2 million people in our country who were expected to die. Fauci said powerfully at the beginning, no masks. You remember that? No, masks don't work, masks don't. And then he went into masks, and then he became a radical masker. I would call it, if you have 3, if you have 4, get a pair of goggles also, ideally. And let's wear them for another 5 or 6 years. But Fauci has perhaps never been more wrong than when he denied the virus and where it came from. The time has come for America and the world to demand reparations and accountability from the Communist Party of China.
We're not talking about something that's entertaining or sensational. We're talking about your government, where you live, your country, your freedoms. Right. And what we're talking about here is things which you see every day. Like someone said a long time ago, many will look with their eyes but not see, and listen with their ears but not hear. And that's us. That is this country. We have been looking at things all along and never realizing the significance of the occult emblems that we're seeing today.
Europe, a new world order. An international world order.
Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
And creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
I think a new world order is emerging.
New world order.
The opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
In the old Celtic Druid occultism of ancient England, from which we have gotten most, about 95% of our mysticism in America has come from the old ancient English Celtic magicians. We always see pictures of
We're talking about Stonehenge, right?
Yeah, Stonehenge, right. Merlin the magician with his magic wands, and all the magicians always have their magic wands. Magic wands were always made out of holly wood.
You're not real. You're not real.
What? You are? Is any of it real? I mean, look at this. Look at it! A world built on fantasy.
synthetic emotions in the form of pills, psychological warfare in the form of advertising, mind-altering chemicals in the form of food, brainwashing seminars in the form of media, isolated bubbles in the form of social networks. Real? You want to talk about reality? We haven't lived in anything remotely close to it since the turn of the century. We turned it off, took out the batteries, snacked on a bag of GMOs while we tossed the remnants in the ever-expanding dumpster of the human condition. We live in branded houses, trademarked by corporations, built on bipolar numbers, jumping up and down on digital displays, hypnotizing us into the biggest slumber mankind has ever seen. You have to dig pretty deep, kiddo, before you can find anything real.
Ordo ab chao. That is their slogan. Order out of chaos. That eye above the pyramid is not on the pyramid, which means their work is unfinished, and that the universe will be given order once their God assumes his rightful place in that pyramid.
Great architect of the universe and arc of our lives, we thank thee for the abiding unity, peace and concord of our order, founded upon the three pillars of thy wisdom, strength and beauty. In the spirit of the Masonic virtues of fidelity, loyalty and constance, we pray thy blessing upon our dedication of this ark to the service of the craft. We return it to its former place of honor in the Grand Temple, where it will adorn our ceremonies and forever remind us of our incomparable heritage and those duties we owe to thee, Almighty God, to our fellow men and to ourselves. By thy everlasting light, illuminate our hearts and minds with brotherly love, relief and truth, in the practice of every moral and social virtue, for this world's good and thy glory, in thy holy name. So mote it be.
Let that blessing be restored to the candidate.
Manly P. Hall, who is one of the great Masonic writers of all time, wrote a book called The Secret Destiny of America, and he said it was concealed inside the symbols of the dollar bill. So now we've got to go back to the back of our dollar bill and find out what those symbols mean. And it's very rare that people have done that.
But these people are satanic at the core. They don't believe in God. They hate God because their God is Lucifer. God is Lucifer.
America's secret destiny is concealed in those symbols. It's a civilization without a belief in God. Understand that the Masons are not working openly for their goals. They keep them secret. They put their symbols inside the seal so that only those who knew the secret could understand them.
It is satanic at the core. This whole country is not based upon Christianity. It's satanic from head to toe. Don't ever think.
Above the eagle's head is a cluster of stars, 13 5-pointed stars, and when you draw lines between them, you'll draw a 6-pointed star. Inside the American dictionary is the word anagram, which is the intentional scrambling of the letters of a word to conceal the real word. So if you re-scramble, you get Masons. This is how we know that the Masons originated the drawings for the Great Seal of the United States.
We've been told that America is a Christian country from its origin, one nation under God. We've been taught that our government is for the people, by the people. But what if it's all been just a grand deception? What if the God, worshipped in secret by government leaders in our nation's capital, is in fact our enemy, and many of our leaders have been venerating him secretly through arcane rituals, setting the scene for the incarnation of this ancient entity?
They used the powerful energy of ninth-degree sex magic, through which the goddess Babylon herself might appear in human form.
What if everything we thought we knew about this great nation was designed to bring about the greatest conspiracy of all time? A conspiracy for the souls of humanity. What if I told you that America was founded by the darkest elite secret societies, and that there are still powerful remnants, controlling hands in high positions, carrying this torch?